Greetings from the Book Whisper. Every story is a journey into a world of love, passion, deception, and self-discovery. Close your eyes, let the sounds carry you away, and may this story touch your heart. Harmony's Shadow. The humid air of Harmony Creek hung thick, a cloying perfume of honeysuckle and regret. This wasn't the idyllic postcard town of its name. Beneath the veneer of picket fences and friendly waves lay a tangled undergrowth of secrets, whispered in the rustle of corn stalks and the creak of old porches. For Olivia, life in Harmony Creek was a gilded cage, her marriage to Oliver a testament to stability rather than soaring passion. They had the comfortable house, the respectable lives, the two well-behaved children, but comfort had long since curdled into complacency, and the vibrant hues of their youth had faded to a muted gray. The rot had set in subtly, a creeping vine of dissatisfaction that Olivia chose to ignore for years. She'd clung to the illusion of perfection, the carefully constructed facade of the happy suburban wife. Then came James. He arrived like a storm, disrupting the placid surface of her existence. James, with his easy charm and eyes that held a dangerous spark, was everything Oliver was not. He was a wildfire in her carefully tended garden, and Olivia, starved of heat, found herself drawn to the inferno. Their affair was a stolen thing, snatched in hushed afternoons in dusty motels on the outskirts of town, under the disapproving gaze of weathered billboards. The guilt was a constant thrum beneath the exhilaration, a dark counterpoint to the music of her desire. She loved Oliver, in a way. He was the anchor, the foundation, but James was the wind beneath her wings, the dizzying ascent into a feeling she'd forgotten existed. Meanwhile, in the shadows of their manufactured peace, other currents swirled. Emma, Oliver's sister, watched Olivia with an unnerving intensity. Emma, always the observer, the keeper of unspoken truths, saw the cracks widening. Her own life was a study in quiet desperation, a marriage to the perpetually absent Elijah that had long since devolved into a polite arrangement of shared silence. She nursed a bitter resentment, a deep-seated envy for Olivia's perceived happiness, even as Olivia herself was unraveling. And then there was Theo, the town's resident artist, a man who painted the soul of Harmony Creek with strokes of raw, untamed emotion. He and Olivia had a shared history, a youthful flirtation that had never quite died. He understood the yearning in her eyes, the quiet ache beneath her smiles. He saw the desperation, the longing for something more than the predictable rhythm of her days. Theo, with his bohemian spirit and his perceptive gaze, became a silent confidant, a distant beacon in the fog of Olivia's internal turmoil. He painted Olivia, not as she was, but as he imagined her, a creature of light and shadow, forever poised on the edge of a precipice. The air in Harmony Creek was thick with unsaid things, with desires buried deep, with betrayals simmering just beneath the surface. Olivia felt it all, the weight of it pressing down on her, threatening to suffocate her. She was caught in a web of her own making, a victim and perpetrator of her own intricate deception. The love she had once felt for Oliver was a distant echo, replaced by a fierce, consuming passion for James, and a growing unease that she could no longer outrun. The carefully constructed walls of her life were beginning to crumble, and she knew, with a chilling certainty, that the storm was far from over. It was merely gathering strength, preparing to break. The summer in Harmony Creek bled into autumn, painting the familiar landscape in shades of ochre and crimson. But for Olivia, the season offered no respite, only a deepening chill. Her clandestine meetings with James became more frequent, more desperate. The initial thrill had begun to fray, replaced by a gnawing anxiety. James, for all his initial allure, was proving to be less a passionate lover and more a careless predator. His demands grew bolder, his expectations more demanding. He saw Olivia as a conquest, a diversion from his own restless life, and Olivia, in her naivety, had offered him the keys to her sanctuary. One crisp October afternoon, while Oliver was away on a business trip, Olivia met James at a secluded cabin deep in the woods. The air was alive with the scent of decaying leaves and the promise of rain. Their passion, once a burning flame, now felt frantic, almost violent. Olivia realized, with a sickening lurch, that she was no longer in control. James's grip tightened, his words laced with a possessiveness that terrified her. He spoke of futures she hadn't imagined, of sacrifices she wasn't prepared to make. The carefully constructed fantasy began to shatter, revealing the stark, unvarnished reality of her situation. Back in town, the whispers began to circulate, insidious as the first frost. Emma, with her sharp eyes and her insatiable appetite for gossip, had noticed the changes in Olivia, the late nights, the furtive glances, the subtle shift in her demeanor. Emma, ever the pragmatist, saw an opportunity. She'd always felt overshadowed by Olivia, by her apparent ease and grace. Now, she saw Olivia's vulnerability as a weapon. She began to subtly probe, planting seeds of doubt in the minds of mutual acquaintances. A casual remark about Olivia's unusual stress, a knowing smile when James's name was mentioned. She enlisted the help of Mia, a woman known for her gossipy nature and her proximity to most of Harmony Creek's comings and goings. Mia, eager for a juicy scandal, readily obliged, amplifying Emma's whispers into a chorus of speculation. Meanwhile, Theo watched Olivia's descent with a heavy heart. He'd seen the shadows in her eyes, the growing desperation. He'd tried to reach her, to offer a sympathetic ear, but Olivia was too consumed by her own internal storm. One evening, as he was closing his studio, he saw Olivia leaving a clandestine meeting at the edge of town. It wasn't James, it was someone else, a man he didn't recognize, dressed in a sharp suit, his demeanor radiating an air of quiet authority. A seed of curiosity, and a touch of unease, was planted in Theo's mind. He found himself wondering what secrets Olivia was harboring, and who else was caught in her increasingly complex web. The tension in Harmony Creek was palpable, a storm gathering force, and Olivia, oblivious to the full extent of the forces arrayed against her, continued to walk a tightrope, her balance precarious, her fall inevitable. The late autumn rain hammered against the windows of Olivia's meticulously kept home, mirroring the turmoil within. Her affair with James had soured into a bitter dependency, a desperate clinging to a fleeting illusion. He had become a burden, a source of constant anxiety, his threats and demands a constant echo in her mind. She longed for escape, for a return to the uncomplicated days before James had stormed into her life. The insidious whispers, amplified by Mia and Emma, had begun to take shape. Neighbors eyed Olivia with suspicion, their friendly smiles replaced by knowing glances. The once comforting familiarity of Harmony Creek now felt suffocating, a town of watchful eyes and wagging tongues. Olivia, trapped by her own choices, felt the net tightening around her. One evening, at a tense town gathering, she overheard a conversation between Emma and a woman named Charlotte, Oliver's cousin. Charlotte, a woman known for her sharp tongue and her unwavering loyalty to the family, was speaking with a hushed urgency. "I just don't understand what's gotten into Oliver," Charlotte murmured, her voice laced with concern. "He's been so distant lately, so preoccupied, and Olivia, she's not herself either. I saw her with that man, James, just last week." They looked. Charlotte trailed off, a significant pause hanging in the air. Olivia's blood ran cold. That man, James? She'd thought her clandestine meetings were secret, but the implication in Charlotte's words, the unspoken accusation, was far more disturbing. It wasn't just her own secret being exposed, it was a hint of something larger, something she hadn't anticipated. Theo, meanwhile, had been piecing together his own observations. He'd seen Olivia's increasingly erratic behavior, her furtive glances, her growing distress. He'd also noticed Oliver's unusual preoccupation, the dark circles under his eyes, the way he'd flinch when his phone rang. And then there was the man he'd seen Olivia meeting, the one in the sharp suit. Theo, a keen observer of human nature, sensed a deeper complexity at play than a simple affair. He began to do some quiet digging of his own, piecing together fragments of conversations, observing patterns of behavior. He learned that the man Olivia had been meeting was a lawyer, and that Oliver had recently been involved in a series of complex, high-stakes business deals, involving significant sums of money and a rival company. The feeling of dread that had been a constant companion for Olivia now intensified. She realized she was not merely playing the role of the adulterous wife, she was caught in a larger, more dangerous game. The romanticized thrill of her affair had vanished, replaced by a chilling awareness of the potential consequences. She felt a profound sense of isolation, adrift in a sea of her own making, with no safe harbor in sight. The carefully constructed world of Harmony Creek was not just a backdrop to her personal drama, it was an active participant, its inhabitants weaving a tapestry of intrigue, and Olivia was rapidly becoming the central, unwitting thread. The air in Harmony Creek crackled with an almost palpable tension. The whispers had coalesced into a storm, and Olivia felt herself at its very center, exposed and vulnerable. Her meetings with James had ceased entirely, his threats and demands having become too much to bear. She was left with the crushing weight of her guilt and the looming specter of discovery. One frigid evening, as snow began to dust the dormant fields, Olivia received an anonymous package. Inside, she found a single photograph. It was a picture of James, smiling, but his eyes held a cold, calculating glint. Beneath the photo, scrawled in block letters, were the words, "He's not the only one who knows." Olivia's heart hammered against her ribs. Who had sent this, and what did they know? Across town, in his impeccably neat study, Oliver poured himself another glass of amber liquid. His face was etched with a weariness that went beyond mere exhaustion. He held a sheaf of papers, financial reports detailing a precarious situation, a company teetering on the brink of collapse. The truth was far more complex than a simple infidelity. His business had been systematically undermined, a carefully orchestrated sabotage, and the primary suspect, the man orchestrating the downfall, was not some faceless competitor, but someone far closer to home. Evelyn, a woman Olivia had always considered a quiet, unassuming friend, had been playing a dangerous game. Evelyn, whose husband, Silas, had a bitter rivalry with Oliver's family spanning generations, harbored a deep-seated ambition. She had been feeding information, subtly manipulating events, all while maintaining the guise of friendship. She had cultivated Emma's suspicion, encouraging her to look for Olivia's supposed transgressions, knowing that a scandal would serve as a powerful distraction. Evelyn's plan was intricate: to drive a wedge between Oliver and Olivia, to weaken Oliver's resolve, and then, at the opportune moment, to strike and claim what she believed was rightfully hers. The photograph of James had been sent by Evelyn's associate, Lucas. Lucas, a man with a shadowed past and a reputation for discreet, unpleasant tasks, had been observing Olivia's affair. He had also been reporting on Oliver's increasingly desperate attempts to salvage his business, noting the clandestine meetings, the stressed demeanor. Evelyn had orchestrated the entire affair, using James as a pawn to destabilize Olivia and, by extension, Oliver. She knew James was susceptible to manipulation, a fact she'd gleaned from mutual acquaintances. Theo, meanwhile, had finally put the pieces together. His artistic intuition, coupled with his quiet investigation, had led him to uncover a pattern of deceit that extended far beyond a simple marital indiscretion. He'd learned about Silas's long-standing feud with Oliver's family and had begun to suspect a more sinister motive behind Olivia's perceived infidelity. He'd also seen Evelyn's subtle machinations, her carefully placed words, her seemingly innocent inquiries. He understood that Olivia was merely a pawn in Evelyn's larger, more ruthless game. As the snow fell thicker, blanketing Harmony Creek in an unsettling silence, the true nature of the complex relationships began to reveal itself. Love had curdled into obsession, passion into manipulation, and betrayal had become a weapon. The facade of suburban tranquility had shattered, exposing the dark, intricate web of intrigue that had been woven beneath the surface. The final act was about to begin, and the outcome was far from what anyone, least of all Olivia, could have ever imagined. The stage was set for a confrontation that would expose not just a marriage, but the very heart of Harmony Creek's hidden darkness. The dawn broke over Harmony Creek, painting the snow-laden landscape in hues of pearlescent gray and rose. Olivia, sleep-deprived and consumed by a gnawing dread, felt a strange sense of calm. The anonymous photograph, the veiled threats, Evelyn's insidious influence, it had all coalesced into a horrifying clarity. She was not just a victim of her own desires, but a pawn in a far more elaborate game of power and revenge. She found Oliver in the living room, staring out at the pristine, silent expanse. He looked gaunt, his usual composure replaced by a deep, unsettling stillness. Before Olivia could speak, Oliver turned, his eyes holding a mixture of pain and a chilling resolve. "Olivia," he began, his voice raspy, "I know about James." The words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken accusations. Olivia braced herself for the storm, the recriminations, the inevitable end of their marriage, but Oliver continued, his gaze unwavering. "But that's not the worst of it, is it? James was just a distraction, a tool." He gestured to the papers on the table. Evelyn, she's been working against me for months, undermining my business, planting seeds of doubt, using James to make you vulnerable. She wanted to break me, to take everything." Olivia stared at him, stunned. The image of Evelyn, the demure hostess, the sympathetic friend, flickered in her mind, now overlaid with a chilling new reality. Evelyn, with her carefully cultivated innocence, had been the architect of their downfall. Just then, the doorbell rang, a sharp, insistent summons. Oliver exchanged a look with Olivia, a silent understanding passing between them. He opened the door. Standing on the porch, framed by the swirling snow, was Evelyn. Her face, usually so composed, was now a mask of triumphant fury. Beside her stood Silas, his expression grim. "Oliver," Evelyn spat, her voice tight with suppressed rage. "It's over, I've won." "Have you, Evelyn?" Oliver's voice was calm, deceptively so. "Lucas told me everything, about your plan, about using me, and Olivia, as stepping stones." Evelyn's eyes widened, a flicker of panic crossing her face. "Lucas? He wouldn't." "He did," Oliver stated, a faint smile touching his lips. "He decided loyalty has its price, and yours was too high." Suddenly, a car screeched to a halt at the end of the driveway. Two police officers emerged, their faces stern. Evelyn and Silas froze, their carefully constructed facade crumbling. "Evelyn Thorne, Silas Thorne," one of the officers announced, stepping forward. "You're under arrest for conspiracy, fraud, and multiple counts of obstruction of justice." Evelyn let out a strangled cry, her defiance dissolving into a terrified whimper. Silas remained stoic, his gaze fixed on Oliver, a silent admission of defeat. As the police led Evelyn and Silas away, the snow continued to fall, blanketing the town in a fragile peace. Olivia looked at Oliver, her heart a chaotic mix of relief, confusion, and a strange, nascent hope. Their marriage, battered and bruised, had survived the storm, but it had been irrevocably changed. The infidelity had been a symptom, not the disease. The true betrayal had come from a far more unexpected quarter. Theo, watching from his window across the street, saw the police car drive away. He'd known, in his artistic soul, that there was more to the story. He'd seen the hidden currents, the unseen forces at play. He picked up his paintbrush, the image of Olivia, not as a victim, but as a survivor, taking shape on his canvas. The complex relationships of Harmony Creek had finally revealed their true, shocking, yet undeniably logical, conclusion. The love, the passion, the despair, the intrigue, it had all led to this quiet, snow-dusted reckoning, a testament to the fact that sometimes, the greatest betrayals come from the most trusted hands, and the most unexpected alliances are forged in the crucible of shared adversity. Dear listeners of the Book Whisper, we hope you've been left with a lasting impression. We're constantly searching for new stories to share with you. Don't miss what's next. Subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell. Give us a like if you'd love more audiobooks like this. Until our next meeting on the pages of our tales.